Hello, my name is Nora Reetze and I'm a sociologist at the University of Umeå, and I'm doing research on the relationship between labor and nature, or more precisely on trade unions' environmental policies. And today I want to talk about some issues that I noticed while studying the documents of trade unions and their environmental policies. That is the way in which they translate the concept of just transition into actual environmental policies that they want to pursue. So one of the issues that I noticed is that in the documents, what is constructed as the problem that is impacting on workers, sometimes positively but also negatively, the problem is defined as the transition itself. And the question is that the transition is actually a solution for the problem of the climate crisis and the loss of biodiversity. So if you define the transition as a problem, what happens then as well is that workers are constructed as the victims of that transition. They have to be protected, they and their families and their communities have to be protected from the effects of the transition. While it's of course extremely important to protect people, what happens in such a construction is that workers are only the victims of the transitions and they're not seen as the actors, as the ones that can make the transition happen. The third problem is that the perspective of the just transition as it is constructed in the documents of a lot of trade unions, the perspective is green growth. Well, in my view, and in the view of many other people, green growth is a contradiction in terms. Why? Because when we grow, we need more materials, we need more energy. So that makes it not so green. But there are three arguments that are put forward in favor of a green growth, trying to disconnect the usage of material and energy from economic growth. The first argument that is used is that we can shift to a circular economy. That is, we can recycle the things that we produce and use. The problem with that argument is, though, that 44% of what we produce is food and is energy usage. So these are things that cannot be recycled. Then 27% is in buildings and in infrastructure. Again, they cannot be recycled. So in fact, only 1/3 of the economy, 31% exactly, can be recycled. The second argument that is used in order to say that we can disconnect the usage of energy and material from growth is that we can improve efficiency. Well, history and our experience shows that whenever we increase efficiency, the demand for products also rises, so that in the end, we end up with using more materials than before we were so efficient. Now, the third argument, and maybe the most important argument, is that we can have green growth because we can shift our usage of energy from fossil fuels to renewable energies. While this sounds great, the question is, how is that going to happen? Do we really have enough resources to do that? So there are researchers who have calculated, what if we remained on exactly the same level of energy usage that we have now, and we would shift that energy usage from fossil fuels to renewable energies? Well, the issue is, in order to produce wind turbines and solar panels, we need a lot of material. We also need a lot of precious minerals. So these researchers have calculated that if we stay on the same level and we use renewable energies, the demand for the minerals that are necessary in order to produce the machines that create that energy would be much larger than the minerals that really exist in the world. For instance, we would need 80% more lithium that exists already in the world, and we would need 40% more nickel than exists on the earth. Well, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't shift to renewable energies, but it just means that renewable energy usage and growth do not go together. So the other point is that where the minerals are extracted, they are very inhuman working conditions. Partly slave work, children's work is used. And also, the extraction of those minerals is contaminating the soil, the water, and the air heavily. So the basis of our living is actually destroyed by extracting those minerals in order to produce renewable energy. So what we need is really an alternative path to a just transition. And the first necessity in order to go on that path is to stop constructing workers as victims and see them as actors. Because workers have the skills, the experience, the ingenuity, and the creativity to transform and convert the production processes that are detrimental to the environment into environmentally smart production processes. They have the ability to convert production processes in order to produce socially useful products. We have seen that in history. For instance, the famous Lucas plan, where workers were to use their jobs in an industry that was producing arms, and they came up with over 150 products that could be produced with the same materials and the same machines in an environmentally friendly way with their skills and their capacities. And today there are also lots of conversions of production due to the COVID crisis that we live in, where workers produce products for the health industry, for instance, and then demand to be able to produce that. So, but what about green growth? What about departing from the growth model? Of course, that will be difficult, but there are suggestions for that, and I'm just going to mention a few. For instance, it will be possible to reduce paid employment, that means produce less, and that could be compensated with a basic income. That means work could be distributed among all the workers who need it so that we don't have unemployment, and people could still earn enough to have a good living. This also means that we would open up the possibility for a different way of life, in which paid employment is not the center of our life, but it's just one part of our life. And the other part could be the development of our capacities, the development of our creativity, the possibility to share the care for children and for the elderly among the genders more equally. In other words, departing from the growth model and creating a green economy that is not based on growth can improve our life, our living conditions, and the way we develop our social relations. I want to end with a sentence that Gandhi has said, but that is especially important for people like us living in the global north. We have to live simply so that others can simply live. Thank you very much.